My friends, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope that you get some time to rest and reflect, and maybe it won't rain on us, but I don't want to leave the weekend and or get into the weekend without giving you a great story. I really thought this was interesting. I hope you do as well. I read about these hummingbirds. I thought about my mom immediately. My mom loved hummingbirds. She had little uh, things on the curio cabinet of hummingbirds and pictures of hummingbirds. And right outside her kitchen window, she would have a feeder. And she had this one little red hummingbird that would come and feed, and she would just stand there and watch them. And she loved those little hummingbirds. And I read this story about these hummingbirds that are in the Amazon. And these little hummingbirds, the only plant that they could eat from, that they would go and eat from, was poisonous to them. So if these hummingbirds would go and feed off of these plants, and then they would end up dying because basically they were taking in poison. So when they first took in the food or the nectar, it was substance to them, but then over time they would die. It literally poisoned their systems. So in the Amazon, it was studied that what these little birds learned to do was they would go to a certain part of the Amazon and they would take the water from this area in the Amazon. And then they would go and take the nectar from these poisonous plants. And they were able to live. In other words, these little hummingbirds found a way to combat the poison. They found a way to balance out the poison and they were able to live. And so these little hummingbirds over time were able to realize, well, if we take from this little area in the Amazon, we can then go and get our nourishment and our substance, and they wouldn't die. No wonder my mom loved those little birds. They were smart little creatures. And as I read that, it just blew my mind as I was thinking about that is what we should be doing as people. Now, before you just go past and click off of this and go, yeah, right, that's what we should be doing, I want you to think about it. Now, these little birds had to have the nectar from those flowers. There was nothing they could do about it. But they found a way to basically immunize themselves so that when they had to go get the nectar, they were able to live. We are in this world, whether we like it or not. And you may be like me. I try to stay away from political conversations, not too much religious conversations with certain people. You got to know your audience. You have to know your audience. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. And we have to find a way to take something in so that as we go into the world, we have found something to balance the pH, if you will. We found some way to balance out the negativity by taking in some positive things. There was a time I was speaking at a youth retreat, and one night after speaking, a young lady came up to me and she said, I have horrible dreams, horrible nightmares. And I said, really? What about? She goes, oh, it just depends. Some nights I had these dreams that somebody's trying to kill me in my sleep, and other nights I have these dreams that I'm being stalked. And she said it's just horrible. So I'm sitting there listening to this because I was the featured speaker that week in the youth camp, the youth conference. And I said to her, huh, well, did you have one last night? And she goes, oh, yes, I did. I said, well, what happened when you left the service? She said, well, I went back to the dorm and we have DVDs and we were watching uh, the Nightmare on Elm Street trilogy. I said, you watched the Nightmare on Freddy Krueger with the claws and the 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. And she said, yeah. And I said, and you had nightmares? She said, yeah. I said, what about the night before? She said, oh, we had the Halloween uh, movies and we watched those. I said, Jason? Beep, beep, beep. She said, yeah. I said, huh. She goes, do you think it's a demon? You think the devil's after me? I said, no. You're filling your head with all that stuff before you go to sleep. No wonder you're dreaming of people chasing you and Freddy showing up and Jason standing outside your window. I said, if you counteract that, if you counteract that by putting something positive into your life, it balances things out. This is what Jesus meant when he said, we are in this world. We're in this world. There's nothing you can do about that. You have to go to work. You have to be around people. Not everybody's going to think the way you think. Not everybody's going to have the same belief and the same thing. And not everybody's going to be in the same lane. Oh, that's just how it is. But Jesus said you're in the world, but you are not of the world. In other words, you have found some way to take in some positivity so that when you come in contact with the negativity of the world, because you may not be able to stop being around everything that's negative, but you have something in you that helps build a wall, helps build immunity, helps build herd. Here's a term you hear, herd immunity right now, right? But not against the COVID or against the flu, but against the negativity that's going to come against you. Just like those little, take a lesson from those Amazon hummingbirds. Man, I mean, they figured out a way. They figured out a way to take in something that would give them immunity so they could then go do what they needed to do to get the nourishment. And that's what we have to do. Sometimes you got to just turn off the news. Good Lord. I mean, if you watch Fox News all the time, or CNN, or MSNBC, or just the news in general, you are going to lose your mind. All you're doing is taking that negativity in. And then when you face negativity, you so readily accept it because you've already got it in you. Whatever's in you is what you're going to draw to you. Whatever's in you, you're going to draw to you. I'm going to say that one more time. Whatever's in you, you're going to draw to you. This past weekend, I walked outside and just took a breath of fresh air after hearing all stuff that's going on in the world, and I had the thought of Dizzy Gillespie. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And sometimes you have to do something to combat the negativity. Start finding something positive. Drink it in. And that way you can pH balance against the negative things that are around you in the world.